is up, people? It is Dave. It is Duncan. We are back for another album review. And for this review, Duncan and I have been checking out the new album from Los Angeles sludge band 16. Band's new album, Into Dust, will be released on November 18th via Relapse Records. So, 16 return with their 9th studio album. That's right, album number 9.
Oh, literally only happened to these guys 2 weeks ago. So there we go.
Into Dust, which follows up their 2020 album Dream Squasher. The band,
it's a great name as well.
It really is. The band formed in Santa Ana in 1992 and have been with Relapse Records since their 5th album in 2009.
Oh shit.
Yeah. The band return with their heaviest and most devastating record to date, Into Dust. The new album, a collection of cautionary tales of survival and redemption, is set to an amalgamation of sludge, punk, metal, hardcore, and stoner riffs that could only be built through 30 years of commitment to their dark sonic craft, which 16 continues to improve upon. There's a story arc in the lyrics that start with an eviction notice served amid the ruins of Hurricane Irma in the Florida Keys, to running around the metaphorically and drowning in midlife, bearing witness to the modern suffering of hunger and poverty on the Mexico-California border, guitarist and vocalist Bobby Ferry says. The album was recorded and engineered by Jeff Forrest, who has worked on many of the band's previous albums, as well as bands like Bleeding Through, Cattle Decapitation, and Pathology, to name a few. It was produced by the band's guitarist, Alex Schuster, and then mastered by our man, Brad Boatwright.
We love you, Brad!
Brad, you're the man.
Yep.
So,
Killing it.
16. So, I'd heard of these guys before. We covered, or someone covered, Lifespan of a Moth way back in their previous website, Rock and Roll Reviews. Someone reviewed that for the site.
Yeah, it wasn't me either.
I don't think it was, but someone definitely did. So I kind of knew what I was getting into with these guys.
So had you fallen off their radar since then, or is this a band that you've
No.
checked in with and out with periodically and into?
Yeah, no, I've kind of been on the 16 train for a while. I think they either followed me on Twitter or Instagram or one of the two, and I followed them back. So I've just kind of been keeping up to date with most of their stuff.
Yep.
And I think because like I knew the band, I knew the sound, I hadn't really given like much thought about the album before I hit the play button. And not that I wasn't like keen to hear it, but I'd already kind of imagined, what the album was going to sound like before hearing it. It's kind of like the same thing we had with Clutch, like great band, solid albums, but you know what you're getting before you hit the play button, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Although, in saying that, Clutch did throw a couple of surprises into Sunrise and Slaughter Beach, so, and similarly, 16, Duncan.
16? We're getting higher when we're saying the band's name now.
Just about spun my head off my shoulders when I listened to Into Dust. Few surprises on this album. I liked their last album, Dream Squasher, but I feel like on Into Dust, 16 have leveled up, my friend. It's only been 2 years since Dream Squasher, but somehow in those 2 years they've managed to craft an album that for me was far more memorable than Dream Squasher. It's more kind of stylistically varied, and not forgetting, the tick of heavy as fuck.
I mean, that's a bonus.
Yeah, I mean, and it's pretty much there on every album, but continues on in this one. We've still got an album that is packed with like kind of waves and waves of that sludge goodness, with the kind of riffs that will hit you with that kind of snarling tone. It's very thick, it's very corrosive, but it's also got a bit of a kind of grinding, kind of punky, it's kind of southern at times as well. Hints of Crowbar. You've got little hints of bands like Buzzov, Iron Monkey. I got a little bit of Skinlab in there as well at times, and some of the kind of newer kind of Vision of Disorder as well I was picking up on. But what I love about this is every track kind of gives you a little bit something different, whether it's a different tempo or a different intensity. It's an album that's very attention grabbing. It never feels like they're just kind of rehashing the same song twice. Everything has a different twist, and it's all delivered with this really kind of venomous conviction. They just put everything into each performance, each song on this album. It definitely sounds like these guys have been going for a long time. They never seem to miss a beat. There's nothing sloppy or poorly executed here. Sounds very seasoned to me. It's not even though it's only been 2 years, this doesn't sound like a phone it in type performance. These guys, they still sound as pissed off as they did like back in the 90s. And like all that stuff, it makes for a really kind of enjoyable album. But what I felt really kind of elevated this album to the next level are the vocals. So I'm pretty sure, I think I'm like 90% sure on the last album, the guitarist Bobby Ferry, I think he moved more into more of a kind of lead role when it came to vocals. I'm pretty sure I read that somewhere. And there was a track on that last album. It was called Sadlands, and it was like very kind of slow and doomy, a bit kind of gothic, but it also had these like clean vocals on it. And it was a bit of a kind of like curveball on that album. Like, whoa, wait a minute, what the fuck's going on here with these clean vocals? It had a bit of a kind of like Paul Bearer or Paradise Lost kind of vibe. The rest of the album was all kind of pretty much heavy vocals. On Into Dust, they've expanded that, like that clean side, the clean vocals, they've really pushed that on this album, and it's fucking great. I mean, I really like what they've done here. Track 2 is called Dead Eyes, and when it kicked in and the cleans come in, I was like, it's almost like, I don't want to piss the band off, but it's almost a little bit kind of Burton C. Bellish in the clean tone.
Oh, Fear Factory t-shirt on and everything. No,
just a coincidence. I swear it's just a coincidence, or maybe it's subconscious, I don't know. But like when they kicked in, the track just kind of opened up even more, and it gives you this moment of, it gives you a moment to kind of latch onto, and that kind of like Burton C. Bell kind of type vocal is even more prominent on the next track, which is Ash in the Hourglass. It's a fucking awesome chorus, like super catchy, not in a kind of commercial type way. It's still in keeping with the tone of the music, but that additional side to the vocals just, it gives them even more scope. There's a track called Null and Eternal Void, and there's little words or pronunciations. It's a little bit 4-stroke Barn as well at times. Like it's not identical, but the little things are like, oh, that's a wee bit similar. But I think Bobby Ferry sounds absolutely fantastic. He's now like full-time vocalist in the band as well as a guitarist, and I think you can hear the involvement and the confidence on this album from the last one. He sounds like he's really owning it. The cleans are very moody, they're soulful, but then when it's mixed with that kind of aggressive tone, it makes you want to hit the play button as soon as the album ends. It leaves you with so many little kind of memorable nuggets throughout the album. I think my favourite was probably The Floor Wins. The chorus is huge, man, absolutely huge. And there's a lyric on that track. It's I sold my soul to conquer vertigo. And that lyric has just been living in my head rent-free all week. And behind that big chorus, it's got these really down-esque kind of riffs beneath it that just make it even cooler. But they don't once they they start hitting you with those big choruses, they don't stay there. Just when you think, oh, we've had all these big hooky choruses, they get back to doing what they used to do there's a track called Lane Splitter, which is just like riddled with these like hardcore punk riffs and rhythms. It's no frills, just all out kind of hostility, and it just flows perfectly between each track. The way they've ordered the album is absolutely spot on. It's perfectly balanced in a way that it doesn't feel repetitive, or it doesn't have any moments that feel out of place. The only track that feels a little different is probably the last track,
I think that's on purpose though.
Yeah, absolutely. Born on the Barstool is the closer, and as you said, it's probably the best place to have that more experimental track. The last album, they played around with a little bit of harmonica. This time around we have a bit of electric piano, and there's a bit of saxophone.
Sexy sax.
On that closing track. Come on, can we get a bit of hell yeah for the saxophone? Come on.
Hell yeah.
It starts, that track, it starts with a kind of San Francisco kind of jazz club type vibe. And it's like very kind of freestyle sax. It's got that kind of smoky atmosphere about it. Only lasts for about a minute before the kind of bass and drums kind of come rumbling in and the band kind of kick into gear. But even with the more experimental elements, it does feel a little bit more emotional in the vocals on that track, which I think works perfectly as a closer.
Yep.
Again, another lyric was raise your glass, all things pass, and it feels quite a kind of profound moment on that track when he's kind of shouting that out, and then it plays out with that kind of same smooth kind of sax kind of riffing over the top of the distorted guitars. A great end to the album. The production, fucking awesome. Like it's gritty. It hits you with that impact that you'd want on a Sludge album, but it's got enough balance to let those kind of catchier moments really shine through without kind of being overpowered by the heaviness. Very natural sounding album. It felt like it'd been recorded, like a lot of it off the floor. Like I get that kind of feeling of a band playing live, but it's still got that kind of weight behind it as well. I think like this band are 30 years in, but I think this could be my favourite 16 album to date. And that's kind of mind-blowing because they've been on the go for 30 years, and the fact they're still able to kind of surprise me at 9 albums in is pretty impressive. I think they've done a fantastic job with this. I really enjoyed it. Very, very addictive. Like, it's one you'll go back to a lot, and those choruses just sit with you right after it. It's really, really well done. What about yourself, for someone that kind of new to the band? What did you think?
So you've touched on quite a few of the points I want to come to.
Okay.
The first thing is, when I put this on, which was about 3 days ago, I got to this album finally, although I think I've had this one the longest. Classic Duncan. So Misfortune Teller's the opening track, and I put it on and I enjoyed it, but I genuinely by the end of it was like, cool, this is kind of almost not paint by numbers, but certainly very indicative of the genre. There's a Sludge album, right? Yep. I've got this. And I was kind of like, cool, we've got 40 odd minutes of this. All right, okay. And then you hit the nail on the head. The second track, Dead Eyes, kicks in, and the melody vocals kicked in. And right from that point onwards, there was a giddiness about the listen.
Yeah.
Because it really, I think you can't sell it enough. It completely changes their sound for the better. And it's not because it's adding a commercial polish on it. It's just giving the songs depth.
Yep.
Gives it soul. Sludge is like the kind of homeless, like, brother of the blues, right? It really is. It's like, you know what I mean? It's deliberately kind of smelly, unpleasant to be around, but it certainly lives within that kind of blues spectrum, chord progressions, etc. So when that kicks in and you get that, it adds a little something to the tracks that are needed. And it's not a trick either, because they do it a lot on this album, but they are more than happy to, hold back when it's not necessarily needed. And the choice of where they come in is excellent as well, because it's not always on the vocals and the chorus. Like, at times they might shove it in a little bit of the verse and maybe an interlude where they include it. And that's a smart move, because it's not too formulaic, keeps it active as a listener. On top of that as well, the guitar work is brilliant, because you have this combination of, and they're all bands you've kind of mentioned already, but there's kind of later day Vision of Disorder into something like Blood Simple. There is certainly, production wise and guitar riffing, this has got Down 2 written all over it. Like, sometimes when it comes in, it is so nasty sounding, just full on sludgy nasty downiness that I get like giddy. That's my favourite Down album, primarily because of the production. I think the production is about the rawest that band ever got, and I hear it here, like these elements of like rawness that just kind of work their way through. And just when you think you've got a handle on what they're doing, they do mix things up. You do get elements of kind of something a bit more punky or thrashy. You get slower sections where they're just happy to like just really ride a groove, and then the weird instrumentation starts to come in, whether it's in like Null and the Eternal Void, where you get like retro synths akin to something like the Sword. It kicks in. It's really, really cool. It should not work nearly as good as it does on this album because they never revisit it again. But it sits so fucking well with the tone. It's not overpowering. It's really well mixed. It's just in the back. It's really good. Dressed Up to Get Messed Up, which isn't afraid to fling a little bit of cowbell in there, which is kind of cool, you know what I mean? And it also shows the playful side of the band. Like, that you don't name a song that if you aren't kind of tongue-in-cheek when you're doing it. Very much like yourself, Born on a Barstool is the perfect closer, because I feel like you're getting a bit of that angst throughout the album. There's purging some demons, and then there's this kind of weird, almost joyous melancholy at the end.
Yeah.
Which I kind of love. It's a bittersweet ending to the album, and like you said, when it finishes, you just want to hit play again and go back through the journey. Very, very, very well paced. It's incredibly structured because there isn't any two songs back to back that sound too similar, and at the same time don't sound too disparate either. You do get a feel of this continuous thread taking you all the way through the album, which I know might seem trivial to some people, but as someone that listens to a lot of albums in a year, the ones that stand out the most are the ones where musicians have an idea how they want to put things together, and it's not a case of we wrote 20 songs, we picked the best 12. In the case of this one, this genuinely feels like there's been forethought to the position of the songs and the way that the album flows, and it flows incredibly well. You mentioned the production is spot on. You can hear everything, like every element here, and with those extra instruments being brought in, the tendency for a band that don't usually experiment with synths is to put the synths too high, because like there's synths on this track, listen, and they don't do that here. Even the mixing of the sax is just perfect. Like the band, it sits so fucking well that if they wanted to do an album of, I don't know, like jazz fusion sludge, and have a permanent saxophone player, it would work. They could cover I Still Believe, and I would believe. And that's how tight in the mix it is. It's really, really, really well done. The last thing I was going to say is, out with the musicality, which is really, really good. Lyrics are fucking incredible. Like, just they're really, really well thought out, and they paint pictures all the way through the album. Like, by the end of each song, I had a feeling for what the story behind the track was, the struggle the person had went through, and that's something that like I connected with straight away. So yeah, like I don't have I kind of knew what I was expecting thing out with that first track, which like on the second listen I was totally cool with, because I was like, right, this is just easing me in because we're about to open this motherfucker up. So yeah, like to me, I don't have this is a huge revelation. What I will say is, as Sludge albums go for 2022, it's punching well above its weight. Like easily. It does so much, so well, and so confidently. It doesn't surprise me that they're 30 years into it. I would have assumed from listening to this album that the melodic vocals had been a standard throughout the whole thing. Because it almost is like the band is saying it ain't nothing but a thing. You know what I mean? Is that confidently executed in there? That it just feels like something they've been doing forever. So I thought this was great. Once again, why should I be surprised? Another Relapse album that I love. Like get these guys out with Caven. You imagine that, Caven and 16. I'm just creating tours next year. If you are out there, you want me to set up your tours, your fantasy tour booking, I will do that for you. That'd be a fucking incredible gig.
Crowbar just put out an album this year as well.
But everyone like Crowbar should be on every tour, right? That's only literally, it would kill Kirk, so we can't do that, right? But there's so much scope. I think the fact that they cross so many lanes as well in their music, they're another band that feels like there's a degree of kind of chameleon-like versatility and where you could place them. But I'll tell you one thing, every single track that I was listening to here I could totally imagine live, which is this is an album that would sound great live. Maybe that's me picking up on what you were saying about that kind of live feel of the recording. It just felt so so organic and so in the moment and in the room. It's a great album. It really is a good album. So if you out there, dear listener, are like me and have been ignorant to the band 16, then you're an idiot for a start. And two, there's an easy way to rectify that, and that's check out Into Dust.
100%. Okay, so scores for the new album from 16. Yeah, this is one for me that kind of gets better on every single listen. The more those kind of hooks get into you and it's just in your head, you'll feel yourself humming along and singing along. I thought, like, taking out the clean vocals altogether, this would still probably sit about a 3.5 for me, easy. Still a solid album. I think the cleans on here elevate that massively. I'd give it another point on top. I'm going to go 4.5 on this one. We did the Crowbar album earlier this year. I scored that at 4.5. I'd say this is on par for me. What about yourself?
Difficult to argue with that logic. 4.5.
Oh.
Yeah, this is like you without sounding too cliche to all the standard things that are like insert sentences for Metal Epidemic reviews, but you will rinse this to death. Like, there's absolutely no way that you won't listen to this album on repeat. So 4.5 from this guy too.
Yep. Nice. 16, Into Dust, out on November 18th on Relapse Records. Links below to the band, to their Bandcamp. Check out the album. Drops soon. Let us know what you think in the comments below. That is the review. Thank you for checking it out. We'll be back with another review very soon, but until then, take care. Speak to you soon.
Bye, everyone.